Most weekends, St. Joe State Park is a quiet place. Families on the beach, campers by the lake, the soft hum of four-wheelers out on the sand. But a handful of weekends every year, that quiet breaks. Hundreds of riders show up hauling trailers, engines scream to life all at once. And then a flag drops, and a wall of dirt bikes tears off across those pale, man-made dunes. The ground-up remains of 100 years of lead mining, racing. If you didn't see part one of this story, here's all you need to know. The sand at St. Joe State Park isn't natural. It's chat. The leftover waste from milling lead ore, piled into mountains and dunes over 50 years, then donated to the state and turned into a park in 1976. People come from all over to ride it, but some of them come to race. And that tradition is older and still more alive than most people realize. Let me explain what kind of racing we're talking about, because it isn't what you might picture. This isn't cars going around an oval. The main event at St. Joe is something called a hare scramble. A hare scramble is an off-road endurance race. The organizers mark out a long loop through the roughest terrain they can find: woods, hills, ditches, sand, often 10 or more miles around. Then a huge pack of riders lines up, and when the flag drops, they all take off at once and ride that loop over and over for a set amount of time, usually a couple of hours. Whoever completes the most laps wins. It's part race, part survival test, and the loop at St. Joe is a brutal, beautiful thing. One rider who raced it described a course that ran across deep, tiring sand, over rocks the size of baseballs, winding past the old mining railroad tracks and the crumbling concrete foundations of the mill. You are, quite literally, racing through the ghost of the operation that made the dunes in the first place. So how long has this been going on? The organized off-road racing scene in Missouri has a backbone called the Missouri Hare Scramble Championship, a series that has been running since 1985. And for most of that time, Park Hills, St. Joe State Park, has been one of its regular stops, which means people have been lining up to race across these lead tailings for something like 40 years. But the event that people around here remember best had a name of its own: the Flat River Grand Prix. The Flat River Grand Prix was a hare scramble held at the park, and here's the part that makes it special. It was a charity race. It raised money for the March of Dimes, the organization that fights to save babies born too early and too sick. Four-wheelers raced on Saturday, motorcycles on Sunday, and the whole weekend was a fundraiser. And it worked. By the year 2004, the Flat River Grand Prix was already in its 8th year. That one weekend drew 222 ATV riders alone and raised somewhere around $30,000 for the March of Dimes. Think about that. The fastest way to help a sick Missouri newborn for one weekend a year was to race a dirt bike across a mountain of lead waste. That is about as Leadbelt as a story can get. Now, races like this don't run themselves. They run on volunteers. Clubs of riders who give up their weekends to mark the course, run the sign-ups, time the laps, and haul away the trash. And over the years, the torch at St. Joe got passed from one club to the next. For a stretch, a club called the MO Dirt Riders ran the Flat River Grand Prix. Then, around 2014, another club took over the Park Hills round and gave it a new name that fit it perfectly: the Leadbelt Hare Scrambles. That club is called the Missouri Mudders. And the Mudders didn't just show up and race, they put down roots. In 2012, the park approved them to build a permanent event shelter out there, a real standing home base near one of the wakes for sign-ups and staging, partly paid for with a grant aimed at keeping public land open to riders. When a racing club builds a permanent building in a state park, that tells you this isn't a one-off. This is a relationship. And it wasn't only hare scrambles. St. Joe has hosted Enduros too, a different, more precise kind of off-road race against the clock, including rounds of a regional Enduro championship and even a qualifier in 2009 for the International 6 Days Enduro, one of the oldest and most prestigious off-road motorcycle events in the entire world. For one weekend, this little park in the Missouri lead country was a stop on the road to a world championship. Which brings us to the question you probably came here with. The races people remember, are they gone? No, they're not. That's the best part of this whole story. The racing at St. Joe never got shut down. It never got banned, never got chased off by the lead in the ground or the lawyers or the rangers. It just kept going. The Missouri Mudders are still out there running their Leadbelt Hare Scrambles and Enduros as a stop on that same championship series that started back in 1985. There are races on the books at St. Joe as recently as this decade. Riders still lining up on the chat, engines still screaming across the dunes. So if you grew up around here and you remember the sound of the Flat River Grand Prix carrying across the Leadbelt on a spring weekend, that sound never actually stopped. It's still out there. You can go this year. And when you really sit with it, it's a remarkable thing. They mined this ground for 100 years and took the lead out of it. They left behind mountains of crushed rock that nobody had any use for. The state turned it into a park. And the people of the Lead Belt, the children and grandchildren of miners, took those poison mountains and made them roar again. Not with mill machinery this time, with engines, with racing, with a charity fundraiser for sick babies run across the exact ground their families spent generations tearing apart. The mines built the mountains, and their descendants raced them. If these are the stories you didn't know were sitting right in your backyard, you're not alone. That's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe, and we'll keep digging them up.